Everybody. Robert Smith here, and today's topic is going to be one that I've been getting a lot of questions on over the years. Um, Seems to be a pretty popular discussion, and so today's topic is going to be my release. Um, there are a lot of things that I think that I do differently, and also same to what the PBA tour guys that you see now throwing, like your EJs, two-handers like Simo, everybody like that. There are commonalities to this release, which I think will help everybody hopefully generate a little bit more rev rate, RPMs, hook. Everybody's looking for more hook. But this is my philosophy, my way of thinking on how I've generated revolutions, hook, roll, but trying to keep it to where it's very predictable, consistent to the best of your ability. But with that being said, the release to me, there are 4 parts to a release that we need to go through. And all we're going to talk about really is, just that zone on where the release is, where we're letting go. And the first part that is really important is understanding that the release has a distance to it. So there is a start and a finish to this release. It actually coincides with the swing, the distance from where you start and finish, and it takes time to get this release to actually finish. Most amateurs, most league bowlers, you see that they will try to release and leverage the bowling ball at exactly the same time, and what ends up happening is they turn into a lift. Lifting the ball is not necessarily the right thing as far as when you're trying to generate roll, consistency, and so forth. So from that position where we have the start and the finish of the release, which is the first part, the second part is, okay, where am I loading my hand up? How is my hand loading up in this shot? We have to have a start and a finish, so it's not just where the distance is now, it's actually the release, the hand and how it moves. The third part to this is, where am I really trying to get my hand to finish? And there is a spot that, if you notice with everybody on their follow-throughs, that their hands get to all these same positions every time on that. And fourth is, of course, making sure that when we're doing everything, am I rolling the tilts? Which way is my tilt going? Am I forward? Am I around the side of it? Am I trying to create a lot of back end, a lot of early hook and stop? What am I trying to really do on this? So without any further ado, let's get into this. So the first part of what we're trying to do is we have to have a start and a finish point to this release. So when I'm coming down through the shot, I'm not trying to make my release and everything happen here. There is a distance and a process in what I need to do on this. So when I'm coming into my release actually starts somewhere back here, which is kind of crazy to think because I'm trying to let go of the ball here, but that's when I'm actually letting go. But the release, the hand motion that comes through, starts relatively behind the foot so I can finish to this position. So as long as we understand there's a window, we can start going into the next phase of things. So part 3 actually comes in a little bit before part 2, so we're going to get to this now. But when we're talking about where our hand needs to be, if you watch the tour guys, even if you watch some of my older shows and stuff like that, EJs now, the two-handers, even some of the guys back in the 90s and 80s, you'll see that when they let go of the ball, their hand finishes in this position. It is somewhere to where the hand is actually thrown backwards, where it is not straight and it's definitely not cupped, but the hand actually finishes here. So if we know that we have a window of where we have a start and a finish in this actual approach, or in the swing, I should say, and I know that my hand has to finish here, that means at the start, where does the position of the ball need to be? And this is where we get into the cup. So we're trying to cup and load the ball into here, but it's not necessarily a huge cup where you're trying to get the hand completely under the ball. You're trying to get the cupped hand to be where it's just the fingers being leveraged underneath the ball, or the bottom hemisphere of the ball. So let me show you with this ball here, the raw, easiest one to show. So I've got a piece of tape here halfway in my grip, and you'll see there's a hemisphere to this. There's an upper and a bottom hemisphere, but if we flip it around, this is the way we really want to look at it. So the idea is, for me, is that I want to be able to get my fingers to stay on the bottom hemisphere of the ball. I don't want my entire hand to be underneath on the bottom hemisphere of the ball, but I just want my fingers, basically these three right there. As long as those three are on the bottom end of the hemisphere, I am leveraged now on this ball. The fingers will take the pressure, everything's good. If I try to go this way, you can see what happens is my elbow bends way too much. It's kind of stressful. So something like this, you'll see maybe EJ start out this position. I'm a little bit more cupped. Barnes does the same thing. But the idea is you'll see that we're trying to just keep the fingers on the bottom hemisphere of the bowling ball. So that way, when we get into the start of our release position, we're still cupped and leveraged, but now when I get to the bottom of it, I'm now here. So what ends up happening now is I stay leveraged, I collapse it, but the fingers are still going to pull the ball through. This is your pressure, your leveraging. It's not as strong as a lift, but you'll still feel the fingers take the brunt of the pressure through here. So the idea again is getting the fingers to stay on the bottom end of the hemisphere. When you get ready to start the release in this window, the hand collapses. Now, why we do this is because we want the hand to actually collapse and move to enhance the directional roll of what we're trying to get out of the ball. So, Chris, if we can get down here a little bit. So if we're trying to get the ball to roll this way, we want the ball to roll this way, you'll see that if I just keep my hand in the ball but let it roll, my hand has no choice but to collapse back, roll down, and fall backwards. And the idea is because now the hand is working with the rotation of the ball or the roll of the ball that it's trying to do, we get an enhanced motion, and now our hand works with it. We generate a much higher rev rate. If I'm in the same position here again, but now I'm trying to lift the ball, well, if I'm trying to roll it and lift, you can see what happens. There's no complement. The forces work against each other. So now the only way to generate hook, rotation, or whatever is to twirl over the side or over hit the ball, which you see some people get a lot of loft or they'll get a lot of side rotation. So the idea now is that we don't want to lift it, but we do want to let this hand collapse backwards so that way it works in compliance and helps out with the actual roll of what we're trying to get to on the ball. You can watch any of the good pros out there. They're all going to do the same thing. Doesn't matter the rev rate, the hands all finish in this position. So, from that position now, we have to understand that all this release window and everything, that it's not a matter of how fast, I shouldn't say how fast, it is a matter of how fast the release takes, exits our hand. Most people think that if we have a fast release, a quick release, we're going to get more revolutions. But the thing is that if I'm trying to do a quick release, that also means I'm trying to get the ball off my hand very fast, which means I'm really not getting the ball into a roll. So what ends up happening is a lot of mishits, things like that. Only time I try to make a release fast or quick is simply either shooting spares or throwing a much straighter strike ball where I'm trying to take the revs out. Usually with the quicker release, my ball speed comes up too, so this is where we start getting these differences. So if you want to get the ball to hook more, we have to go the other route, which is we want the release to be as slow as possible, thorough. The idea is that if we can slow the release down, we will slow the ball speed down. Now we'll get our rev rate and our speeds to match. Once we get these things to match, now we're getting a very predictable, consistent ball roll that you would normally not get if you're like, say, a speed dominant or a rev dominant guy. You're trying to get a balance. So the idea is that if I get the release slow, it'll match up to the ball speed. There's my hook that I'm trying to generate. So for myself, I am never trying to release it fast. Yes, it looks fast. It looks really fast, even when I watch it on video. But the feel that I have is not fast. It is slow, it's thorough. I can feel the ball rolling completely down my hand as I'm getting into this position here. So hopefully that doesn't confuse too many people. We're gonna go and throw some shots here now and see if we can, try to demonstrate what's going on with this. So the first order of business is remembering that we need to get ourselves into leverage position, right? So since I want the fingers, mainly the 3 fingers, to be on the bottom point of the hemisphere, this is all I need. Once I'm in this position, I'm locked, loaded. I don't need to add any more or less to it. Once I get to this position here, all I need to do is just basically, as I'm letting go of the thumb, just let the hand kind of go over the ball, almost like pushing the thumb over the fingers. That's what you're looking for. And a very simple motion from here to here is what you're going to see. So I'm just going to do a simple little shot, but you'll see what I mean. Hand finishes like this. There's no lift. It's all roll, but since the hand is collapsing, it's almost like a whip, a yo-yo, a frisbee, anything like that where you're generating extra spin without trying to, go crazy with the arm swing. So that's it. So now let me show you what it looks like when I try to go with a quick release. So when I'm playing straighter, even a spare shot is a quick release, right? But if I'm trying to throw a strike ball and play straighter, maybe I don't want the rev, so I'm going to make my release quick. So here's my quick release. Not much on it. Ball exited quick. You can see there wasn't as many revs on it because I couldn't stay leveraged because I was trying to get the ball off my hand. Ball speed does pick up when you do this. It's a normal byproduct, nothing wrong with it, just learn what it offers. All right, so I'm gonna stand in the same spot. And this one's gonna be kind of my normal release, what I consider normal exit speed off my hand, normal this. And all I want you to do is see the difference in how much it hooks. That was just a difference in how fast my release was. Revs picked up, speed dropped a little bit, got more shape. It makes sense, right? So if you're thinking in that ballpark, so this next one, it makes sense. What I'm going to do is stand in the same spot again, but this time I'm going to make my release as slow as I can. It's going to be thorough. It's going to do everything I want, but just the process is going to be slower. This should take off and fly on me. Three different release speeds, 3 completely different shapes and hooks, 3 different ball speeds too. But you can see now if you slow everything down with the release, make it thorough. You're not trying to, we're not in a race to get the ball off our hand. We want to make sure that this thing is rolling as heavy and as thorough as we can. So we want it to exit the hand slow. We still want the motion to be the same, but if we're trying to throw a quick release, you're not going to get as much hook as you possibly could get from that. So, with that being said, that in a nutshell is kind of what I think of as far as my release. It's simple. It's a little complicated at points too, but the idea is it's a simple motion. It's a little bit loaded with the fingers underneath. Everything finishes to a collapsed position, and what I do is dictate how fast I want this release to be. And that enhances my roll, generates bigger rev rates or lower rev rates, depending on which one I want. But now I'm in control and the ball exits my hand clean. It's always rolling. And that's, in a nutshell, what every professional looks like. So when you watch these shows now, watch the guys' hand positions. Watch where they all finish here. you're going to see every one of them doing it. So, one extra thing on the release. We do have tilts that we got to work on. So you'll see ball tilts, you know, people roll it end over end, kind of normal, big side rotations. How do I do this? How do I get into this kind of stuff? Well, it's almost like the same thing as the release speed. If I'm trying to get a quick release, I'm not giving my hand any time to rotate over, so therefore the hand stays a lot flatter. Usually when I'm trying to do a quicker release, I'm trying to keep the weight and the pressure more on the middle finger. That middle finger is my guide on where I want the ball to go. So when I go with more of a direct roll, it tends to be a little faster, but if I want an end over end roll that's much straighter, I'm going to try to release the ball off the middle finger. So you can see I can still hit it, but since the roll was very straight, it took a lot of the hook out. Now, what happens when you do throw a ball that's more direct and end over end like that, the bowling ball is, the spin of the roll is not fighting the direction of the roll, so the ball tends to read the lane a little bit sooner. Also with that byproduct of reading sooner, it tends to have a little less back end. So if we work our fingers as a dial on this, middle finger, ring finger is usually considered the rotational finger. My next release will go off the ring, and you'll see that there'll be a different side tilt, and the ball shape will come off much differently. A little bit longer down the lane because the ball's spinning more sideways, fighting the direction, but once it grabs, since there's more side tilt, phew, off it went. So just by me releasing off the middle finger and releasing off the ring finger, you can see I changed the complete motion of what that ball did to the front and the back end. So if you want to get really around it, yeah, go ahead and pull that thumb, get that release going all the way to the pinky. You'll see that it'll even be more side tilt. So let's go ahead and try that one. A little bit more uncontrollable when you're getting into that, but again, that's the idea. So you can really manipulate your ball shape, rev rate, speed. You can do all this stuff by just understanding what's going on at your point of release in this window of what we're trying to do through the start and the finish. So in a nutshell, to recap a little bit on this, we have a start and finish position on the release. We want to try to get the fingers to stay on the bottom hemisphere of the ball. We don't want the hand, we don't want the thumb under there, we just want the fingers. If you can get the entire 3 fingers like I do underneath, awesome. If you can just get the tips, that's fine too. Just as long as you get something on the bottom half of that hemisphere, we're fine. From there, we know that every hand position has to finish this direction. So even if you're straight like this, if you collapse it back at the point of release, you're still going to be okay. So the more cupped or loaded you are at the start to get to this position, you're going to generate more rev rate. No thumbs, two-handers, since they've got the maximum cup and get to that position, you see what they can do to a bowling ball. Makes sense. The physics of it totally makes sense. So remember, if we want the ball to go straighter, more speed, quick release. If we want the ball to rev more, hook more, a little bit slower, we want to slow down that release, give that thing time to roll off our hand. Plus adding in which way the ball rolls off our hand, middle finger, ring finger, or pinky, you can change your tilt. So between all those tricks and differences in what you can see that you can mix and match certain things to accommodate and to compete on what the patterns show out there. It's a lot of experience, it's a lot of practicing, it's a lot of messing around. But if you can kind of at least get the concept that this hand position needs to be here at the end of every release. So when you get to this position, boom, it ends like this. You're now at least enhancing the roll of the ball off your hand by giving it that little whip motion like a yo-yo or a frisbee. The Japanese termed it great when I was out there. They called it the roll down release. You know, everybody lifted, lifted, lifted. Here I was doing a roll down. They wanted to know what was going on with it, and this is pretty much the explanation I gave them. So, with that being said, to end this thing off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to absolutely nail on one and try to max out everything I can. Rev rate, tilts, slow speed, everything, just so you guys get an idea that when I'm throwing the ball, I'm still not trying to throw it 100%. It's usually about 75, 80. But if you want to see what 100% looks like, this is what I do. Hopefully this doesn't hurt too bad. Well, at least it stayed on the lane this time, so that's good. But guys, you know, this is a one take thing. You know, hopefully I didn't sound too weird on what I was trying to explain, but this is my release to the T. And if you watch the guys now, there's parts of me that they do. Of course, they do it a little bit better, smoother, all that good stuff, because, you know, they got to see some of it. Me, it was a lot of it was just on the fly, and what I felt was efficient, smooth, comfortable. But I hope that helps. I hope everybody gets some answers that they wanted out of this with this release video. Again, thank you to everybody that had been kind of hoping that this was going to come along eventually, and here it is. But with that being said, again, like always, I'd like to thank my sponsors, Hammer Bowling, I Am Bowling, and Vice Inserts for their help and support of me on this. And, you know, I read the comments a little here and there, so if you got questions, please put them in there. But otherwise, from that, I hope everybody enjoyed this video. This one, hopefully, you know, there was a lot of detail on it, and hopefully everybody understood it, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it, okay? All right, until next time, thank you guys. Have a good one.